Hello, welcome to Diary of a Creator. I am Victoria, the soul-led career coach, and this is a channel for ambitious, freedom-seeking souls who refuse to settle for ordinary. So if you're feeling stuck in a life or a career that no longer fits, you're starting to question your path and craving something more freedom, fulfillment, alignment, then you are in the right place. If my content resonates with you, I would love it if you could like, share, and subscribe. It just helps me to grow and reach more souls. So far this channel has been a lot of me sharing my journey and insights, but I am very excited to say that I am going to be bringing on a guest speaker every month now. And these are going to be women who have already made the leap into a soul-led career in life at different stages and different journeys. And to kick this off today, I am going to introduce my very first guest, Kristen. Kristen spent 20 years in a corporate background in media, but despite her success, her soul felt stifled. So in 2021 was her pivotal tower moment where it really pushed her to leave all of that behind and fully embrace the path that had been calling her for over a decade. Now, as a master energy healer, a meditation practitioner, an incense artisan, and tarot reader, she helps others to heal, release stress, and reconnect with their inner light through her own soul-led business called Calma Places. Welcome, Kristen. Great to have you on today. How are you?
I'm great. It's an honor to be here with you.
So if you want to just introduce yourself to everybody, so just a little bit about your background, where you are, where you've come from.
Yep. So I live on the Central Coast and I've got two gorgeous kids. So I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and a husband who's lovely too. He's gorgeous as well. And currently at the moment, I am working as an energy healer, meditation practitioner, and I also do handmade incense. So I love to work with plants and creating gorgeous scents, which is really far away from where I began my corporate career. Before I got into this space, I worked in corporate media. I started when I was 21 and I worked all the way up until I was 41. So completely different to what I'm doing now. And it was an incredible, tumultuous, dynamic, very shaping
Mm.
period of my life. I think about 5 years ago, I transitioned out of that world and started my journey of creating a soul-led business. I'm now 43.
Yeah.
And you go through that, it's not a midlife crisis, but you go through that period of going, what the heck have I done? I had stability, I had an abundant paycheck coming through, I had all of these amazing things, to all of a sudden having none of that and starting completely anew. It's been a fascinating journey. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. I feel you on that. And taking a step back into more towards the end of your corporate career, tell me, what were you feeling and experiencing towards the end?
It was a really difficult time. I had just had my second child, so I just gave birth to Lorenzo, and he brought so much happiness and joy. And with him, I did feel a deeper shift within me. And when I was on mat leave, I felt, what am I doing? It was that soul calling was amplified. But I transitioned back into the workplace, a mother of two young children, and went back in. But I knew I wasn't meant to be there. I knew there was something else that I was awakening into. I didn't know what it was. I'd already done a lot of energy work, studied it, was practicing it at home. I'd studied meditation for 5 years. However, I had a massive ego that was very controlling of how I thought that would look. So when I went back into the workplace, I felt a little bit excited, but then just got sucked back up into that world of playing the games. Especially in media, it's uber ego driven,
Yeah. Okay.
very political,
Yeah.
and it just zapped me. It fried me. I was exhausted, and and my soul was crushed. I felt really constricted. And I had this romantic vision of me creating my soul-led business part-time, doing it on the side, and then when it was in demand enough for me to jump over, I would leave and go and do that. But it just didn't happen. It didn't happen that way at all.
So how did it happen? What was the pivotal turning point, or I call it the universal slap in the face?
Yeah, so I got a few uppercuts and a few slaps. It was that period and that moment for me when my heart wasn't in it. My heart wasn't in it. And I'd worked incredibly hard for a very long time to get to the height of where I was. So I was a general manager, which was an incredible feat for someone my age. But to get myself there, I'd worked incredibly hard and was work hard, play hard, first one in the office, last one out. And when I came back after having my second child, I just didn't have that grunt left in me. And I also didn't have that care to either. It was that realization and that spark of why do you deserve my soul?
Yeah.
And why am I giving it to you? And so it started to get a little bit of the rift was created when I wasn't giving that complete me over to the business. And I think that was felt by them. You start having conversations of performance management. And so when conversations like that start to come into play, I think for me, I'm getting pushed out here. I'm not meant to be here. So
Uh,
it definitely wasn't romantic. And it was anything but romantic. But that was my end of a 20-year career.
yeah, wow. You mentioned that you had your business idea kind of molding for like about a decade. What
Yeah.
what kept you stuck?
Yeah, it's fear. It was my fear. It was largely driven by my ego and my egoic mind. I was an alpha woman. I was a girl boss, and the masculine side of me was leading the way.
Yeah.
And so my ability to really lean into trust and surrender and allow myself to leave that structure
Yeah.
to start something new pulled me back in. And it kept happening. I had these moments where I remember I was at Channel 9 at the time and I created all these gorgeous mala beads in Bali with Rudraksha seeds. That was stunning. And I spent so much money getting them produced. And then I get them created. And then I was too scared to do anything
Uh,
with them because there was also the fear of not only leaving the stability of that structure, but there was also the fear of how I was seen and the external validation of me coming out of my spiritual closet. I was scared. You don't want people to think that you're crazy.
you're taking me to a moment where I remember where I did my first silent retreat. I remember coming back into corporate and I couldn't, people were like, where did you go? I'm like, oh, I don't really know how much I'm comfortable sharing because
Oh,
it's two identities almost where
yeah.
you don't want to corrupt the professional identity.
It's incredible because when you're in that corporate space, you are moving in the collective energy of what is around you. And it's really common to be stressed. It's really common to drink and to work really hard. And it's commonplace to be in that identity as being that person of I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. And yeah, when you separate yourself from that crowd and you allow yourself to move away and explore these practices that are dissimilar to that world. Stepping back into that space is crazy. And then articulating that as well.
So when all of the redundancy or push out was happening, what happened after that?
Oh, it was a pretty dark time for me.
The dark
It
night of the soul, would you
it
call it?
absolutely it plummeted me into this really dark night of the soul, crisis of consciousness. What am I doing? What have I done? Where am I going? And my ego was incredibly scared. So as soon as I left, I had this urge I have to create my business now and I have to have that story. So if people ask me what I'm doing now that I've left, I really latched on to creating a business that held that story for me. So it wasn't about doing something that was in service to others. That was a big element of it, of course, but the intention and the energy fueling it was coming from my ego. I have to create something that looks cool, that is spiritual, that I can show people, look, yeah, I did leave a 20-year career, but I'm doing this now and look how good that is. And so I spent a lot of my energy in the website, in the branding, working to have the story done, looking at my socials and Instagram, and not actually doing any of the work and the offerings. I wasn't getting work at the same time. And so then I was trying to get people to have an energy, do a meditation or do one of my workshops. It was this really awful pull and force that I was trying to get people in to fill that void. And so that kind of went for a pretty long time because you overlay that then with this inner soul that's just wanting to come out and pull you back in, but I was still in that the dark night of the soul, the death of the ego, and all of that tumultuous period, which is needed, which is very much needed.
I think it's needed. I went through it too. The soul has a way of delivering messages that you're going the wrong way because things just don't work. And then you're pushing up and up, and then you realize that it is ego and you cannot work that way anymore. It's almost like the ground gets taken out from underneath you during this period, and it's like
Yeah.
the ego is almost trying to find its footing, but you almost can't in that period.
It's definitely a period of it's a massive test. The this and so the world goes quiet. I got to that point where I had a bubble around me and it got quite dark and I thought I was lonely. But then the more I allowed myself to really anchor into that stillness, into the quietness, became a hermit. I would only move in the direction of resonance with people, with places, so that I really buckled down a little bit. And it was within that period for me and that period of darkness where I started seeing the light, where I was able to go, oh, I actually feel safe. I feel safer within myself now. And I sat with that for a long time. And it was almost like that cocooning
Yeah.
where you're comfortable in the dark, you're comfortable on your own, you're comfortable within your own body. It's almost like you're broken down to that point where you are pretty much nothing but in that darkness. And for me, that's when I started to shine. It was in that stillness I started to receive my messages from soul. I started to get familiar with the world within me. And that's where I got courageous again. That's where I started to feel the sunshine. And I didn't necessarily all of a sudden want to come and put myself out there again, but I started to just become reacquainted with the new version of me I was becoming and the confidence starts to come back again.
Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely think there is a very much sequence to this journey. And if there was anything I would say to people is don't even rush into business or career. It's just full-blown self-discovery first. And there is the
Yes.
collapse period. And then it almost,
Yeah.
because I definitely feel like I rushed with the ego as well. Just feeling
Yeah.
like I've got to do, it's not about being, but
Yeah.
it is about being. And then it reveals. And
Yeah.
so when you were in that space of being, tell me how your soul-led career and path started to become clear to you.
Yeah. I feel the more I let go completely
Mm,
and actually handed myself over to the universe and got out of the way a little bit, it created the stillness. I actually would have my soul guide me a little bit more. And it was this realization that if I'm wanting to do something from my soul, it's actually a soul-led business to be of service to others. It's not going to be led by my ego. It's not going to be led by my mind. It's going to be led by my intuition and my heart. And so the more I would lean into that, the more my path would open and I would connect with people. And then with that, an opportunity would arise. And still, even now, that's exactly how my business is growing. I don't do anything anymore from my ego mind. I allow the universe to show me. And these opportunities come forward, and I think it's like a miracle. It's a miracle that it happens, but it feels so good within my body. So I don't think about what I'm doing anymore. I feel it.
Really.
I don't believe my thoughts. I believe my sensations.
Yeah.
And is exactly how I make decisions with my business. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. And for those that might be earlier on in the journey, because surrender and trust, I feel like the biggest battles, just generally speaking. How did you navigate that at the start?
Yeah. For me, it's the lesson of discernment. I had to become acutely aware of the voices in my mind, acutely aware. So I take my meditation practice quite seriously. So, as I mentioned, I was a Vedic meditator, and that was twice a day. And there was a point, though, that shifted for me. And then I ended up really connecting to more of my intuitive being,
Mm.
my guides, create a source energy. And the more I would lean into that, then and allow myself to receive this higher wisdom that we all have access to, the clearer my path would become. And so for me, it's taking my rituals seriously to allow myself to open to my intuition further. And so that lesson of discernment, then when we are in stillness, is this the voice of my mind and ego speaking to me right now, or is this the voice of my heart and my intuition and higher wisdom? And I started to become acutely aware of what my body would do because when I would receive guidance from my ego, there was always this element of fear attached to it. So my body would tense. And so it would be like, oh, I should do a piece to camera on Instagram because that's what everyone's doing. And then I'd sit with that and I'd feel tension in my body.
Mm.
And I'd be like, why am I so tense? Whereas I would sit then and listen and wait for my guidance to come through from my intuitive mind and my higher self,
Mm.
and my body would soften. And it would be more of a message of actually, we don't need to be sharing what you're doing on Instagram today. Perhaps sit more in silence and do something else. And so the more I would discern between the voice of the mind, the voice of my intuition, and the more I would take action of the voice of my intuition, the easier things got for me. And then I would move in that direction and then I would create flow.
Yeah, yeah. And I think whenever you were speaking your ego voice, you kept saying should. That is like
Yeah.
a dead giveaway of
Uh,
ego. If there ever
yeah.
is I should, I need to, I must, I can't. It's
Oh,
that. If
yes.
ever, the other thing you've mentioned I want to tie to is intuition and heart doesn't always mean there won't be fear in what you've got to do because sometimes your intuition and your heart are going to be pushing you into an expansion, which is
Yeah.
actually going. How do you navigate knowing if it's call it expansion, discomfort,
Yeah.
or ego fear?
For me, there's always this level of our intuition comes from heart, right? It comes from a space of pure love, like it's at the highest frequency. And so when we are receiving guidance that is wrapped up in this higher wisdom, it's always got our best and highest interest at
Yeah,
heart.
yeah,
And so even though it might be pushing me to do something that my mind might find scary, my heart will be excited.
yeah,
And so there's always an element of is this fear or excitement? My higher self knows.
yeah,
My mind and my human self has no idea at all.
yeah,
And especially when we're moving into a soul-led path, our ego has never been on a soul-led path. And so the ego is not going to understand that and then will go into fear. Whereas the soul knows, it's all knowing and it comes with heart.
I always say that the ego thinks it's a psychic. It thinks it can see what's
Oh,
happening, but it's
and
only from the
yeah.
past.
And look, honestly, I love my ego. I love it. It's
That
part
is,
of me. I love my
yeah,
mind. Like they're both incredible facets of who I am.
yeah,
For me, the biggest lesson has been my ego and my mind, though, are not in control.
yeah,
And my heart center is my power center, not here. And
yeah,
so the more I lean into this space, the
yeah,
more exciting my life gets because I'm on my golden path.
yeah,
And my lovely mind is just trying to keep me safe, but it has never been on a soul-led path.
yeah, yeah.
Poor little egos.
But you've said a good point is you have to love your ego because it is a part and it's I think there's a lot of talk in personal development of you can remove your beliefs and remove your ego. You can't, you work with it. It's just part of the journey. And so where are you now in your business, in your soul-led journey?
So I'm in it. I'm doing it. Honestly, I'm incredibly proud of where I'm at because if I was asked this 5 years ago, I was in a different space. Whereas I'm actually excited about it. I sit in a space of excitement and I'm open to receive. And my golden path has opened. I'm on my highest timeline and I'm actually in a soul-led business because I'm allowing my soul to lead it. It's quite interesting because a lot of where even now still, my mind comes in, I think, oh, I should be doing this and this. And then my soul is just so much more prominent now. And I end up doing these things I just never thought I was capable of because I've removed that element of fear of being in my awareness. I collaborate now with a lot of different people. I
Yeah.
support a lot of highly successful businesses as well.
Yeah.
I still do a lot of my one-on-one healings. Recently, I got asked to be part of this gorgeous retreat and it was incredible. And so I'm finding where I'm at with it now is I'm just so open and in this space of surrendering where these miracles are just coming forward to me every day. And I've never been more busier than I am now doing things that I love. So it's incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is such a journey and it's so turbulent. It's so tumultuous. It's fucking scary. It's hard. And then all of a sudden, once you move through a lot of that heaviness
Yeah.
and you start opening to your own light and
Yeah.
expanding within, and you start got like peering out of the cave. It's
Yeah.
just so easy. It's easeful. And so now, though, I feel like I'm in that space where it's that next leveling up that doesn't stop. You just have to keep
Uh,
leveling up to the incredible miracles that come through. And also, like I'm calling these people in, and they're calling me in too. And it's beautiful. It's
mm.
amazing. And so it's allowing myself to receive
And also
and
just
enjoy.
and I think we won't ever fully have a handle on it, but the soul is much, much bigger than the
Yeah.
human self, like way bigger.
Yeah. Like we're so expansive and expansive in a human form. Like we are obviously energetic beings and energies attract and all of that kind of stuff. It's all of that grandeur of what our soul aspect is,
Yeah.
and then the reality of that in the physical density of being human and the
Which you've
experience.
What you've said is just when we were going back into what's the difference between the intuition and the fear, because some places your soul will lead you, you're probably going to be like, I can't do that.
Yeah,
An expansion of who you are versus the fear is actually going to be pulling you away into a smaller version of playing, really.
yeah. And it's funny, right? Like our ego has only ever experienced what we have experienced, whereas our soul and our higher self and the higher wisdom that we have access to
Mm,
is infinite. And it's the soul wants to lead us to all of this expansion.
mm,
And the ego has never been there. It doesn't have a recollection. It doesn't know that space of expansion. So it's just trying to pull you back into that. I only know this, so I'm going to be safe here because we only know this.
yeah.
Whereas we talk about this all the time as the energies expand, the expansion and awareness that we have of this expansion, it's
Mm.
only growing. And so the ego just becomes less.
It's like it doesn't disappear, but its ability to pull you off.
Yes.
To another question. And I'm assuming the answer to this, have you had any moments where you just wanted to give up? It's a silly question, right? But
You know what? At my the darkest moments and the lowest of the low, where you're like, all I want to do right now is give up. Like I
mhm,
want to give up.
yeah.
And then there is a realization that you were that low, you can't even give up because if you're already there, man, like you
Yeah.
can't get any lower than where you're at. And so the only option in that lowest period, and I can laugh about it now, but at the time it's terrible. It's there's no words. When you're actually like the only option for me is to surrender again
Mm,
completely
yeah.
because there's nowhere else for me to go. Even if I wanted to give up,
Yeah.
I didn't know how to because it was like, how do I give up? I've got nothing. There's nothing for me to give up with.
Right. It's true. It does become like a bit of a journey with no turning point. I've hit multiple times,
Yeah,
but and then you move through a process of it, and then once you almost reach the point where you're like the voice of continue, keep going gets louder. The
yeah,
moment you recommit into that, something happens. Okay, it's almost like you get
yeah,
feedback.
yeah. Because I
Continue.
believe, right? Like it doesn't end. Like our journeys don't
Yeah.
end. And it's not we get to a peak and you're like, oh, I've made it. Like this is incredible. It's like the lower I go into those depths, the higher I am when I come out the other side.
Yeah.
The deeper the release,
Yeah.
the higher I am when I get out of that.
Yeah.
And the quicker it is too. I still have my low moments,
Yeah.
but I'm not there for very long. When I come out, I feel more expanded because it's almost like the more density is released from my being. And then you get more proud of yourself as well when you ride those waves. Like it's all ebb and flow. And
Yeah.
yeah,
100%. It's like the roller coaster, and it's the same with me. And I think this is why a lot of people will sabotage themselves at the start, or they'll just completely jump ship, is the inability to ride the wave and to know that you are going to hit the low, like you're pushing out into something you've never done. You will hit the low, but you won't
yeah,
now. If we stopped avoiding, our pain would cease to exist because we would just
yeah.
push it through and it would be gone. But we don't.
It's such a big lesson, and it's one that has to be experienced to be able to get yourself through it. You have to
Yeah.
sit in the mud. And one of my gorgeous teachers, I remember them saying to me when I was at that low point, it's that getting comfortable in the mud. No mud, no lotus, but in the mud,
Mm.
when you have so much despair and when you're in the sadness and you're in the loss and you're in the doubt, actually going, I'm going to shift into the observer mode here. And I'm still safe. I'm still safe in the mud, even though I'm having all of these emotions that are rising and coming up to be noticed, to get released. I'm safe and I'm safe in these dark moments. And it's okay because it's transient and I will get through this as well. So
Mm.
yeah, being safe in the mud is a very important realization in this journey.
And I'm wondering as well, just thinking about it, because the way we get conditioned through like schooling and then into corporate and all of this, it's a system that's very much designed to not give us space. And so I think maybe a few generations away, we won't need to really move through such a dark night of the soul because it's like a backlog of all of the shit we haven't processed. When if we had have had the space to always be ebbing like that,
Mm.
wouldn't be such a process, call it that.
Oh, yeah. It's
Oh,
funny. It's being in the corporate world for 20 years. It's
mhm.
a long time. And so
Yeah.
you see a lot of change. And I remember in the first half of that experience, if you were stressed, you could never show it. It was
No.
inappropriate to show it or to have an outburst or to display an emotion, to cry. Or if you cried because you were stressed because of your workload, that was a bit weak, actually. It was this strong, hard, that kind of tough exterior and acted like a man, essentially.
Yeah.
Which and breaking that down once you remove yourself from that environment is also an arduous process as well.
Oh my God, I'm still in it as well because it's such a way of working and it's not conducive to my energy anymore. The more I try and push, I just get so much feedback now. And I'm like, okay, what's the new way of working? Because it's just so ingrained to just like push, push. I did it, but I got so sick. I was so burnt out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I operated like a man.
Yeah. It's funny these days. I just don't have that capacity to anymore.
No.
It's if I'm not in flow and I force myself to get things done quickly and like how I used to work, I just can't. It's just
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
I've had periods where I've done the push and I keep getting sick because
Yeah.
like to the slap in the face of how I'm being pushed to work into it just I'm like yeah yeah yeah. And so for women who are feeling like you did, like I did, what would be your words of advice for them?
Trust the niggle, trust that voice within and lean into it. And I feel like a lot of really big piece of advice is moving in resonance, keeping it simple. Does it feel good to you? If it doesn't feel good, what doesn't feel good about it? And then taking action on that. Taking your time, but taking action nonetheless, and allowing yourself to move in that direction of resonance. Because intuition doesn't lie, our body doesn't lie. Our body holds so much wisdom and information. And if you're going to work every day, and you're exhausted and you're feeling the tension in the body and all of those things, listen to what the body is telling you and move in that direction of resonance and trust that you're capable to do that as well.
Yeah, those are great points. And I think even the timing one resonates for me so much. That's something I would say to myself, just because I think when you come from an overachiever background, which you have, I have,
Mm.
it's almost like that overachiever wants to come into the soul journey as well, but it starts to crap on it. And it doesn't really guide you properly. It guides you into, it's just not quite right. The
Yeah,
timing thing is so critical, and it just becomes a real journey of self before it becomes anything else.
yeah. And I think that realization that the overachiever is a part of our personality that is coming from a space of fear, and which is our egoic mind. And
Yeah,
it's a bit of trauma, it's a bit of, it can be many things, and it's not in lead of the golden path. It's not it's the loudest voice that we have in our head, but it's not the highest wisdom that we need to be leaning into. And the disconnect from the mind and the personality and the overachieving tendencies that we have, the disconnecting from all of that really does lead us into that path of happiness.
100%. And to the happiness point, how has your definition of success changed?
Immeasurably.
Mm,
I previously it would have, if someone had asked me what success was, it would be financial abundance with corporate title
yeah.
and then everything else underneath that, and which is what I had. And then now, oh, I like the hierarchy and the matrix game of having a title with the paycheck does not even, like, I cringe, like my insides go, ugh. Because now my definition of happiness is it's a sensation that just oozes through me. My heart's happy. And I've got a gorgeous family that I have time for, that have my energy completely and have my all of my awareness. I have a business where I connect deeply with people and help them release stress, anxiety, and allow them to experience that soul light within them. And I have amazing people in my world now that think I am as amazing as I think they are. There's this reciprocal beauty in my friendships that I've just never experienced before. And all of that is just pure happiness to me. I am on my path, my highest timeline, and I'm connected to a deep sense of safety, which brings me so much happiness.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? It's the redefine of success.
And it's funny, the abundance comes with that,
Yeah.
comes with all of those things. I
Mm.
am completely grateful. And I'm also incredibly proud of myself for going through
Mm.
that process. But I made it. We make it. We all
Yeah.
make it. And
Yeah.
it can be done. And yeah, I love to talk about it as well because if we don't hear about the darkness and the lows, we don't know that level of success can actually exist.
That's it. And I think it's because, and having very nearly turned around from quite a bit of the darkness, it's like when we don't know, it's almost like in those moments, the ego tricks us to believe that we can't do it or like it's not for us or we can't make it. And it's just knowing that is the language of the ego because it's having a freak out. It's, hang on,
Yeah.
where are we going? I can't do this.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's just listen
no,
and
don't listen.
don't
Yeah.
listen. Yeah.
And I find too, for me as well, a big part of this experience has been allowing myself to do it my way as well and to not do it how other people have been doing it.
Mm.
It's, when we start looking at a soul-led path and journey in business, when you start moving into that world, it also is incredibly ego-based too, which we've spoken about a lot. And it's important to not get wrapped up. Then we're moving out of ego from one
Mhm.
matrix, and then we're entering a new matrix with a different form of ego. So
Sometimes the
it's
worst one.
so it's really important. It has been important for me to allow myself to do it my way, to showcase myself my way, to be uber authentic, and to not allow other people's expectations or perceptions or critiquing of how I'm doing it affects me because we need more people doing this kind of stuff in their own way because our souls are unique. And if you've got a soul-led business, you need your soul to be leading it and allowing that uniqueness to shine through too. And I think that's a really big part of this journey as well.
100%. I got very trapped as well in the templated approach because you almost
Yeah.
enter the space and because you don't know, there's like an inclination to go and find someone that does. But there's such a danger with that. That took me off track for really quite a long time until I finally listened to my soul, which is you cannot have someone else map this out for you.
Yeah.
Cut the noise. And obviously, that doesn't mean not working with people to help you, but they have to be completely in alignment and through discernment. It's not like a copycat. Follow my systems and processes, and this is the only way. If I hear
Yeah.
that ever again on a session, this is the only way you can succeed, I'm out immediately.
We just don't need that energy right now.
No.
We need the energy of authenticity
And
and
uniqueness.
heartlet, yes, and heartlet businesses with everyone's soul imprint coming through.
And any final words of encouragement that you would give to any women that are on the precipice of taking this journey?
I'd say jump with the heart first. So lead with your heart, lead with your intuition, your wisdom, your own innate wisdom, and trust yourself within your own body. Go within. A lot of this work is going within to get familiar with your own innate sense of being. There's incredible wealth of knowledge and it sits within us.
Awesome. Before we wrap up, I'm going to pop it in the captions, but just give a quick summary of how you can help people if anyone's drawn.
If you feel like it's in resonance, reach out because I love doing one-on-one energy healings with people. I do them online. You can be anywhere. I do them online, and then I also offer them in person if you're in Sydney. I tap into your energy field. I work with the 12 chakra system, and I can go in and I pull out information that is sitting within each of those chakra points. So, as much as my work with you is quite healing, it's also extremely informative and quite profound. And I like to hand over a detailed report at the end of those sessions. Reach out if you feel that pull to want to work with me because that's the only way I like to work.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Very powerful.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, my friends.